I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo, as you might anticipate, he doesn't take any days off. Mr. Andrew Kuo, what is going on in your world?
Just trying to figure out what day it is, because every day gets better than the last. Is it Monday? Is it Friday? Is it Saturday? Doesn't matter. It's amazing. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. You know, like it's Monday.
Are you sure?
Is it?
I have no idea. I'm trying to figure it out, man. I just know I feel incredible.
Yeah, I think your baseline level of joy can't really be inversely affected by the day of the week. Like some people, oh, it's hump day. Oh, thank God, it's Friday. You, smooth sailing.
Yo, the calendar's a construct, man. Shout out to Kyrie Irving.
Well, the bubble thus far is keeping the NBA players safe. The games have begun, and thus far, a lot of fun ones. We're going to get to some of the ones that had the most interest to us in a little bit. One thing I want to say before we get rolling is I've seen a lot of praise for the NBA, the National Basketball Association. And they have done a competent job in setting up basketball courts at Disney World. That's true. And they have a lot of access to tests, which most Americans don't. Let's just make sure that we appreciate that this is the players. That they're the ones who went in there, put their health at risk, are away from their friends and families and loved ones, and they're the ones who are so gnarly at basketball that they can pick it up after 4 months and play this quality of hoops. Like, it's the players. I just... It's been irking me a little bit seeing people be like, oh, wow, the NBA. No. It's the players.
Well,
they're the ones who made the sacrifice. They're the ones who were actually playing the game. The other people supplied the uniforms.
Well, you know, I agree. People, maybe Twitter was really willing to go at Kings, Rashawn Holmes, and Lou Williams for doing very reasonable human things and breaking rules that we're not used to breaking. And people were like, why can't these players behave? I'm like, no. Can you get just delicious lemon pepper chicken wings in the bubble? Can you get barbecue wings in the bubble? Is that so hard? Yeah, I mean, exactly. As soon as something goes bad, it's the players who malfunction. And if nothing goes bad, wow, Silver, what a great bub.
You know, we're watching these incredibly exciting, tight games that are, again, remarkably well played considering the layoff. And we're like, the NBA. No, man, that's Giannis, that's James Harden, that's LeBron James, that's Kawhi Leonard. That's the god, TJ Warren. Those are the guys we're watching here that we're celebrating. It's not the league. It's not the owners. It's not the commissioner. They're not the ones on the court. Like, respect what this is. It's the sport of basketball, which is amazing, and it's the dudes who play it, who are equally incredible.
But I would hedge on that, and like the product is awesome. Like, I love the fans. I love the streamed fans. I think the court looks great. I think I have no problems with the crowd noise, because sometimes I see international basketball with these stars in it. I'm like, this looks terrible, guys. Like, can we get a better camera angle? Could we get better mics? And sometimes the Olympics during the day, you're just like, yo, I swear that's Kevin Durant on the court, but this is lousy. This is nice. What we're getting this week has been nice.
It's been well done. I'm just trying to clarify. To me, like, credit where it's due. It's not to the guys who said we can put up hoops in a convention center. Like, that comes with territory. You have millions of dollars, billions of dollars. You can build a basketball court. You can put people in hotel rooms. Yeah, sure. You can pay for tests. Great. But, like, come on, man. This is the dudes. Shout out to those players. They are ridiculously awesome at basketball.
Well, we'll get to some serious hoops talk in a minute, but first we got a little catching up to do. It's been a couple days. What's going on?
Well, I did watch the new Tekashi 6ix9ine video, and I think it could save New York. Just seeing nature return and him riding on the hood of a luxury vehicle of a foreign across the bridge over at Broadway Junction, Myrtle Broadway, wherever he was underneath the elevated train,
Suicide doors up,
hanging out. It felt like summer in the city is back. Thank you, Tekashi 6ix9ine. On your first day when you were able to leave the house, you ended the COVID era in New York City.
There's certain things in New York City that make it distinctly summer. Barbecues, people wearing tank tops, shorts, sweating through those bodega sessions, and Tekashi 6ix9ine videos. It's been like a tradition my whole life. Fireworks on the 4th of July and Tekashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah, who can forget growing up as a kid, summer camp, chasing fireflies, Tekashi 6ix9ine videos. These cherished American values, really. Rockwellian upbringing of Tekashi 6ix9ine, face tattoos, pulling that, gleaming 9-inch salmon out of the stream to your father's approval.
It's time for Naughty by Nature to make a comeback and call it is returning. It was cool to see him go off, though.
Speaking of Naughty by Nature, we were looking at someone's basketball clips that I had sent to you, and we inadvertently stumbled upon a Freddie Fox song.
Wow. This is not the first time we've brought up Freddie Fox on the world's most influential pod.
No, I doubt that seriously. But Tretch, Freddie Fox, remember the whole Jersey movement?
Yeah.
Apache, Queen Latifah, the Rotten Rascals, Zane.
Wow, I've not heard of these names in a long time, man. Yes, I do remember them. What was their lasting contribution to the scene?
Being the flavor unit? I don't know.
Huge. I mean, not for nothing, just huge.
They were kind of the Rough Riders before the Rough Riders.
Oh, of
to
course.
an extent. I think they were into ATVs and stuff.
Were they? I mean, this has everything to do with the Tekashi 6ix9ine video. But yeah, the vehicle gymnastics is kind of like I associate with the Rough Riders in New Jersey for sure.
New Jersey and Philadelphia and Yonkers. I don't really associate it that much with New York. But you see them around though. Like the little, I don't know if they're kits, like that they're homemade or how they even run or if they're even allowed on the road necessarily, but you'll see them kind of zipping around and they look sort of like race cars.
What is street legal now? I saw like a plow, a construction plow cruising on the Williamsburg Bridge the other day, and then one of those 3-wheeled kind of off-road ground effects looking things, and I'm like, is street legal just like an 80s, 90s idea? Can we just do whatever we want?
Well, this brings us niftily to another huge story.
Defund NIFT.
The end of Revel. So Revel was a rideshare moped company that existed really only over the last year in New York City. I don't know if it started elsewhere or started here. I would say it was around for a year, probably tops. But this summer and this spring were really when people were using it a lot. And they'd be kind of whizzing around. They might be going the wrong way in traffic. They might not be wearing helmets. And I think these are some of the issues that ended up ultimately contributing to a couple deaths on them, which, I'll be honest, seemed kind of inevitable considering you're just introducing a new class of vehicle to the street.
A TV reporter tragically died.
And your guy, Bill de Blasio, pulled the plug,
My dude.
literally and figuratively, on the Revel movement.
And Revel themselves also were like, yeah, we're stopping this until we figure this out.
You know what? Maybe that's what it was, that they knew the shutdown was coming, so they said, we're out, or we're going to shut down until we can figure things out.
Yeah, and I believe some people were talking like they tried them and they were really hard to navigate and ride. And yeah, that makes total sense, because when you go to Asia, like, mopeds are a thing. In Taipei, they're just like, there's many mopeds as there are cars. I've seen footage of Bourdain chilling in Vietnam, and it seems like most people use that mode of transportation, and it's awesome. I'm all for it. But New Yorkers are just like, I mean, this is a wonderful city, but we're good at some things and we're really bad at other things. And like, our traffic situation between trucks, Uber, bicycles, yellow cabs, mopeds, like, we are just okay at it.
That's true, but I feel like shutting down Revel for 2 deaths, while we have all these other fatalities due to, bicycles, cars, etc.,
Yeah.
was kind of pointing the finger at someone who is not a prime culprit. That said, it did seem kind of wild how unregulated Revel was, considering
they
that they
just
were
showed up.
vehicles. It's not a ride-share bicycle. It's not even an e-bike. Like, they're mopeds.
Yeah. Yeah, and we get into this kind of we fall back on this debate when we talk about something as big as coronavirus, right? Or even like police brutality. It's like, even though someone might, like a whataboutis might say, but there's all these other things that are just as harmful. How come we're not talking about that? It's like, yes, we must talk about everything, but right now let's fix Revel, and then we'll fix cars and bicycle lanes and stuff, which are also a problem. But like, first, this is kind of like a spike and a new thing in an emergency or whatever. I'm like, yeah, let's just like check boxes, because I've tried to do the whataboutis thing in my brain, and it's just endless, and it just doesn't. Do you know what I mean? But I'm with you.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm not even arguing. Don't figure things out with Revel while there's still trucks hitting cyclists. I'm not even saying that.
Yeah.
It's just more that they were a pretty easy target.
Yeah.
But again, it looked like a lot of fun.
I know. Watching those people zip around on those things. I am into, like, I want New York City just to be bikes and mopeds and stuff, but I don't know what it is about our culture, like, a lot of accidents, man.
I mean, I kind of feel like there aren't that many accidents considering how many vehicles are interacting with each other all day.
Could be
But
true.
at some point, there's just going to be some.
Yeah.
I will say traffic has ticked back up, though, in New York.
Oh,
There
my
was
God,
that,
yeah.
Period, March, April, like, man, there was no one on the road. You could go everywhere in the city. There was no traffic. There was no trucks. There was no cabs. It was a dream as a car owner. You could park everywhere. Now it took me like half an hour to find a spot.
Yeah.
The restaurants, as much as I respect the al fresco dining, a lot of precious car spots are being chewed up by
Yeah.
restaurants and bars now.
Yeah, the I Am Legend vibe of New York City lasted like a longer time than I thought. I would even argue like a month maybe, where it felt a bit like a ghost town. And like, you could just go ahead.
I can't deny it, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, I saw people just running red lights, and there was no one around to make a citizen's arrest. But I think, yeah, we're totally back. It's jammed up on the Williamsburg Bridge on the New York City side.
Yeah, and when I say it was awesome during that period, I'm talking about that surreal element of New York, not the,
Yeah.
20,000 people piling up in refrigerated boxes. I'm not talking about the grim, awful reality that caused it, but that element of lawlessness, it was very Blade Runner. You're just kind of zipping around, whipping through red lights. There's no traffic. You could get from one side of Brooklyn to the Rockaways in like 25 minutes. That's an hour and a half drive on a regular afternoon. It was just blowing 70 on the BQE.
I mean, in a way,
Not that I would ever do that. I've heard that's what was happening during that period of time.
no wonder you want to defund the police.
I mean, all those cannonball runs were setting new records from New York to LA.
Yeah.
They're doing it like in 26 hours or something.
Yeah. Your boy Devin Booker and a Jenner across country. But I think I'm annoyed at traffic always because I'm a grouch, but I'm excited because I just watched that documentary on HBO, Fear City, and there was a part where a mob boss was sitting outside having lunch, and he saw garbage trucks go by that weren't his garbage trucks, and he was like, "Oh, someone's conducting business on my turf," and I thought about that, and I was sitting outside recently, and I saw all these box trucks, like catering or food box trucks, and I was like, I know restaurants are not doing well, but I just saw two like food delivery people roll by. Like that's kind of encouraging. It kind of means that like people are trying and it's coming back a little bit. But like my favorite dumpling spot just announced their closure today. I think 88 Lamzo, and like it's just an uphill battle. But I don't know. There was a lot of thoughts there. I'm sorry.
Wait, why was this your favorite dumpling spot? Because I consider you a dumpling aficionado. So if they're closing and it's your favorite, that is a loss.
I'm bummed, man. I mean, apparently they're going to be open till the 15th. It's on Bowery. It used to be on East Broadway. To be completely honest, for once, I think the reason I love them so much is because they weren't as sweet as the competitors, which is like Super Taste right around the corner. And I thought they were seasoned well, and that sounds like something that's so lazy, like why don't you just put some salt on it? But dumplings are really hard to season after they've been like mixed and wrapped and boiled. And people lose Top Chef because they under and over season things by a dash. So I thought Lamzo did everything so great, and they were so affordable, and they're done.
What was their price point? Were they like a $5 for $1 spot?
Not quite. I think they served plates for $2 or $3, but I always used to get them frozen for $9, a big sack of them. Used to get a few. That's why I want to keep an auxiliary fridge so I can put all my dumplings in them under my desk or something.
What street was it on again?
It was on Bowery, near the old McDonald's that kind of vacated, where the new Joe Shanghai's is. It was nondescript. It was gross. Like they never.
Did we go there right before COVID?
No, me and you went to a different place on Essex.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was Essex. Yeah.
That was my last sit-down restaurant experience. Me and you, buddy.
Well, should get some al fresco rolling.
Maybe this weekend. But that was my last inside restaurant experience.
Oh, same. Yeah, I think. No, I went out one more night after that with my brother. And that was it. Like Finelli's or something.
Oh, that's a good one to go out on.
Went out on a burger and straight to the bubble. Yeah, so I've kind of curtailed my dumpling love after what happened with Prosperity Dumplings. I have to be honest.
That was gnarly. Can you tell our listeners what happened?
It was a place that I always prophesized. I was a big advocate of Prosperity Dumplings.
That's good.
I would tell people, go there. That's my favorite spot. It was dirt cheap. I think it was $5 for $1. It was
for a while, yeah.
Right. It was like the same price as Vanessa's.
It was that model. Yep.
Super cheap, really fast. It would get crowded in there, but it was generally a quick turnaround. It was primarily dumplings, and then maybe you could get like a potato pancake in the mix or something. But after years of advocating for this place, a video came out shot from above the backyard by someone, and it showed them making
in the alley.
In the alley, yeah, making the dumplings outside, not even in the kitchen, but outside with like rats running everywhere on the ground.
So this is close. It's a kind of a misrepresentation, but not really. I think from what I remember, making dumplings on like planks of wood held up by milk crates and a dead rat like 10 feet away.
I felt like I saw rats running beneath the table, but I could be wrong. That might have just been my imagination taking hold.
You have that Brown restaurant PTSD. Remember Brown, that popular brunch spot close by on Ludlow? Someone took a video of rats just like overrunning the place at like 1 a.m.
We sang the praises of rats.
I like rats. Yeah,
I'm not even anti-rat. It was just a very stark scene of dumpling making that made me feel as if I had made mistakes.
Yeah, I like rats as much as I look like newborn babies, a lot. And if there was a newborn baby next to someone making my food, I'd be like, not great. But yeah, that was the style of like the wheat flour handmade dumplings that Vanessa kind of cornered the market on. Lamzo was the skin wonton, the thin wonton wrapper style. So and they came out wrinkly like your fingertips after a bath. You know, I like that style a lot more than the thick kind of pot sticker style. But Vanessa's, shout out to Vanessa's who popularized this whole thing in like maybe 1998, 99 on Eldridge Street. I mean, it was just a wild premise that was a local favorite that, and the word got out. But however much I respect that franchise, that style of food is a big bummer to me. And there was all those copycat doughy, like you can get your thick white noodles in broth. It was the same menu over and over, and I kind of got burnt out from it. Like the fried bread pancakes that were like triangles. It got kind of like flat to me, no pun intended, and I ended up kind of digging deeper, and that's where Lamzo and Super Taste come in.
Well, speaking of less appetizing Chinese products,
I'm sitting right here. First of all, go off.
I'm going into TikTok.
TikTok!
So, President Trump has no appetite for TikTok, much like I've curtailed my taste for dumplings. I still love dumplings. I'm kind of being facetious here. Dumplings are great. Wonderful food.
Mm-hmm. Not all dumplings, Ben.
Anyway, your favorite new medium, TikTok,
I love
is
TikTok.
under siege. Not only from Trump, but I saw your boy Chuck Schumer up there.
What's my boy doing up there? I told him, dude, I gotta call him.
Shoomdog is up there saying, yeah, get rid of TikTok. So we've got a bipartisan effort to get rid of the TikTok kids. Quo, talk to him.
Well, Trump thinks it's because...
Drop a bomb on him, man.
Trump thinks he claims publicly that it's because of privacy. So all of a sudden he cares about our data and China taking our information every time we log on, our behavior, and using this information against us. Fair. He's never cared about it before. There has been a theory on social media that it's all because this comedian, Sarah Cooper, kind of gets under his skin. And what she does, as everyone knows, is she takes sound bites, actual Trump sound bites, and kind of ad-libs them. What's the right word? Like a dubbed movie, kind of acts him out. And it's not complimentary towards Trump at all.
Like maybe lip syncing would be
yeah,
the
exactly.
description, yeah.
And they're all really funny and they're easy to watch, and I like them quite a bit. And she's kind of a sensation. And the murmurings were that got under his skin, because when has he ever cared about whatever China does and privacy? He says he does. He does not care.
Right. I was going to say the concerns about privacy don't make a lot of sense when we have Amazon, Facebook, Google, and the primary powers of surveillance operating virtually unchecked by the government in every single regard. And now to say we're going to ban TikTok because China. But yes, he's holding that company to a standard he has never applied to anything previously.
Yeah, and one of his favorite topics is not only blaming China for the virus, which hasn't quite stuck, which is surprising, and saying he's hard on China. He's so easy on China. These sanctions are nothing. China looks at these sanctions, they're like, yeah, we can work around these. This is not anything. China's making a lot of money, especially recently with the takeover of Hong Kong. They are good to go, and I think, if anything, Trump is very impressed by them and President Xi. And I think this TikTok thing is another swing. He's just, it's a heat check.
It wouldn't be quite a heat check because he's been
Missing.
tossing up bricks. But
Right. Well, I don't believe in heat checks.
there's a couple other theories as well about why he wants to rid America of the scourge of dance videos. And it's because there was the perception that his organization and the Republican Party was fooled by TikTok applications, or people who were on TikTok applied to go to his rally in OKC,
right.
and artificially boosted up the potential attendance numbers, leading them to create outdoor spaces that were fully unoccupied and to more or less humiliate them, and it looking like there was no sort of crowd. Whether that was totally true or not, it certainly could have been. That was written about in the New York Times, and people talked about the TikTok kids as humiliating Donald Trump and the Republicans. There's another theory as well, and it's that this is coming on the heels of meetings with Facebook, and they're about to unleash their version of TikTok, which is called Reels, and that this is more or less a favor for Facebook to shut down the competition for the more or less exact same kind of app that they're about to put out.
But
So
then,
it's like a more or less a conspiracy between Trump and Zuckerberg.
Trump asked Microsoft to buy TikTok, right?
Yes, he did do that. Yeah, by what, mid-September? I'm saying these are the theories going around.
Yeah. I mean, Trump is, to his core, Nixian. He's relegated. I think the Knicks might look at their last 20 years, trade for Andrew Wiggins, and be like, you guys always talk about draft picks. Here's a number one draft pick. It's like, these reasons for Trump being angry at TikTok are all legitimate to me, and he's not even thinking on that level. He might be thinking on the level like, they ruined my Tulsa rally. That might be true.
I think that's what it is. Oh, people I don't like are using this app. Fuck them.
What is this TikTok thing? It's the problem. Get rid of
And it's from China? And Chuck Schumer's here saying absolutely.
Yeah.
Get it out of here.
My favorite discussion that came out of this was, how does someone like a president of the United States ban an app? How would you go ahead and do that? Because you could apply rules to it, and as soon as TikTok broke those rules, you can punish TikTok. But TikTok is not like an entity. TikTok is like an idea. And you can't, like, once Peter Thiel takes down Gawker, which was a villainous, masterminded thing, like, something just pops up in its place. Like, TikTok was Vine, was video, like, it's a thing that it exists in a really elite form because the architecture of that app is really good, and someone will just come through. Like,
Well, that gives credence to the idea of a Facebook/Instagram version of Reels, which is, as you said, the exact same idea, but a different app.
yeah, and Instagram did a nice job with chat, buying Snapchat, I believe, right? And, replacing Vine. I'm still bummed we lost all those awesome Vines, but the quick videos.
I believe I believe Snapchat turned them down.
Oh.
And then Instagram started
okay.
putting in stories later, and then Snapchat collapsed. So my understanding was that they turned down several billions of dollars. Instagram, on the other hand, did sell to Facebook.
Yeah, and the stories are pretty good. I think it works pretty good. I have no problems with it. There is no loyalty in tech. It's the user decides, like, and I think that's what Zuckerberg is terrified of. We will migrate from Facebook in a nanosecond. We're not loyal to Facebook. We're loyal to our information and the things that we make on Facebook.
Let's see here. All right, let's talk about Bucks Rockets, buddy.
Okay. Go ahead.
What did you see?
I love the Bucks, man. I think the Giannis experience is amazing, and it's misconstrued in so many different ways that it kind of spirals into some weird, like, a shame thing. And I think what we're seeing is a really agile, quick Shaquille O'Neal as this dominating shadow on the court at all times. Everyone's looking over their shoulder. It's incredible.
I think that's the best description of him. I agree with that. He doesn't have the same sense of size that Shaq had, because Shaq was just so enormous as a human being. But you do see that kind of in transition a bit, that mix of speed and strength and his ability to cover ground. And he's just kind of a freight truck coming through the lane, but he is agile enough to Euro step one way, get around people, turn a shoulder. So he doesn't run like a big guy. That's kind of his claim to fame. So their game against the Rockets was a really interesting contrast in styles for obvious reasons. The Rockets, I don't think, start anyone over 6'7", and the Bucks go with almost a Twin Towers type of approach with Brook Lopez at 7 feet tall and Giannis probably at 7 feet tall. I'm not sure if he's listed at 6'11", but they're both enormous human beings. So that was a really interesting sort of boxing match. And the Rockets came out on top. It was a really close and competitive game. I loved that game last night. That was so fun.
It was amazing. And it was, I mean, the Rockets coming back and pushing the Mavs to OT a few days before was like the most exciting thing, because the Rockets all or nothing style of play, if the shots go down, is so exciting. And to watch them against kind of like you always say, like this stodgy kind of round peg in a square hole mentality of the Bucks. It was just like a really cool contrast in textures and super exciting. I love Russ on this team. I know he's not as good as CP3, but this Russ is very exciting, I think. As like a
might
compliment.
Be a better fit for this team when Clint Capella was taken out of the mix. And that's what I really love about what the Rockets have done this season, is that they've come to the realization, or they always knew, that you can only really get away with one non-shooter on the floor, maybe one and a half. And they had to choose between what Westbrook brings to the table and what Capella brings to the table. And they wisely went with Westbrook. And as I think we've discussed, maybe even last week or a couple of pods ago, just how dominant Westbrook has been since about the All-Star break, just putting up, 33, 6 and 6 with elite efficiency. I mean, he was tearing it up last night. And I love how the Rockets get the shots they want all the time.
Yeah.
And it was a particularly awesome matchup against the Bucks, whose entire defense is allowing teams to shoot threes, or at least dissuading shots at the rim and sacrificing threes. So the Rockets basically just didn't take shots at the rim very much. It was really fascinating.
Yeah. And since the BMM rejiggered the entire basketball BPM statistic and like basketball reference, PIPM, I've turned into like an eye test version. I'm going to just do eye test for this whole bub. And without looking at the advanced stats, the differences in these two great teams optically was so apparent. And the way they wanted to influence the other team was amazing. It wasn't the Checkers Challenge. It's the Burger Bub.
I mean, I love that the Bucks defense is saying, you don't want to shoot as many threes as it's required to beat us. Eventually, you're going to get sick of taking them. You're going to want some mid-range. You're going to want to run a post-up. How pure can you be as a team that just comes down with all of your players and takes threes? And the Rockets are like, we are down. And they put up 61 threes. Like, that shit is great. I love it. It was such a boxing match in that regard. And at the other end, of course, you had to put guys who were far smaller and less heavy and less physical than Giannis on him all night. And you had to do the same with Brook Lopez. So, fascinating game. And it really could have gone either way. I was really happy to see the Rockets pull it out, though, just as someone who prefers their style and finds it far more interesting than what the Bucks do.
Yeah.
I thought that was my shit.
Yeah, I was almost thinking like, this is as good as basketball gets. In their prime, the Warriors versus Harden and the Rockets was that. But after watching that game the other night, I was like, Does it get better than this? I think so. In this bub, we're going to see even better games. But that to me was like peak basketball, you know. The loss of Bledsoe on the Bucks was noticeable, though. I'm curious to see what they look like when he comes back.
Yeah, I could see him helping out, although he's not a great shooter, but he could do more on-ball defense on guys like Russ. But I went and looked at like the rim protection numbers because that's what the Bucks do. They protect the rim. And like I think Lopez defended statistically via player tracking 2 shots, and Giannis defended 1.
Interesting.
Because they just drive in and kick the ball out. No one can test any of their shots. It's just will it go in or out? And you saw it. They just kept shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting until they went in.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I love No Sin Bin. I love like good cornerbacks in football because the best ones don't show up in any box score because passes just don't go their direction. It's a really confusing thing in a corner of sports, but you know, Lopez not accruing any rim protecting numbers versus the Rockets makes total sense.
I gotta say, man, I've been beating this Brook Lopez as the best defender on the Bucks team drum for a little while here.
Beast.
Like, I feel like Giannis kind of got exposed in the same way, you know, Tatum became a different player during the hiatus when we were like, wait, look at what he did over this last month. Oh my God, is he a top 1 player? Is he a top 2? I know he's a top 1.
What's higher than a 1?
It was the same thing with Giannis's defense. Everyone just talked about it and looked at metrics and decided, oh, okay, yeah, I guess since we can't watch him play, we're just gonna say, yes, Giannis is the best defender. Sure, look at these numbers. They're gargantuan. Oh, BPM, PIPM. Oh,
he is the leader in
defensive
all
win
these
shares.
advanced categories. He does very well in this version of Basketball Reference.
Yeah, and then we realized, so does Brook Lopez.
Yeah,
He's top 2, top 3, top 4 in every one of these same categories. And he's second in the league in blocks. Giannis is in the mid-20s. Brook Lopez is top 5 in the league in shots defended. Giannis is in like the 150s. Wait a minute. What are we doing? Why are we saying Giannis just because he looks cool and he's athletic and he fills us with a sense of wonder? Meanwhile, Brook Lopez has the stats, has the metrics, is the actual center. And I don't know. It was funny to see that yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I think the team was 30 points worse defensively, or the defensive rating, when Lopez was off the court.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, man, I know I'm a hater. I'll take that. I'll take that. I gotta say, Giannis doesn't do anything. I'm sorry. He doesn't do anything. He stands there. No deflections, no steals. He had 1 block. He grabbed some rebounds. 2 of them were contested. He doesn't do anything. Like, I know that's a uniquely poor matchup for his skill set. He's not a great one-on-one defender against guys who are quicker than him. He's not a great help defender when it requires making decisions versus just running and standing in the paint. He doesn't do shit. You look at Covington. Covington does stuff. 7 deflections, a couple steals. Covington's everywhere. Giannis doesn't do anything. Just stands there, man. Sorry. I don't even think I'm being honest. I don't even think he's a great defender at this point. I don't even know if he's a good one. Like, Lopez, yeah, he's kind of a beast at center. They couldn't put Giannis at center. They tried it. They got annihilated. He couldn't protect the rim.
To be Giannis.
Just saying, man. Someone's got to say this. I don't think he's a better defender than Bam. He's not a better defender than Gobert. You know, Embiid. He's not better than any of these guys.
I'm here.
Do shit.
I'm here for Giannis slander, although I think he's probably top 3 in deep.
I think he's the second best player in the NBA. I just don't think
defense. I think he's top 3 defense.
I don't think he's like top 15 defense. I don't think he does anything.
I'm sitting here like that Westbrook meme where he sneaks that cookie on the side of the bench. You're like, yup, and I'm just like, yeah. No one sees him snacking on this Chips Ahoy over here.
Tell me what he does. No one can do it. No one can tell me what Giannis is actually good at on defense.
You're gonna mock me again, but I hear it coming. But I think he influences every play. I think every shot has him on the. He has defensive gravity to him, where every play and every shot is game planned against him. And this goes back to the Nosim Bin's cornerback analogy in football. Like he accrues. I agree with you. He accrues some defensive rebounds that are probably manufactured in a way that like we shouldn't really have to talk about that much. But I think his influence on the defensive end of the court is never to be understated, because even a few offensive geniuses in D'Antoni, Harden, have to game plan for him every time he's on the court and acknowledge where he's at, almost like Steph Curry on offense. And I think it changes the way other teams behave. And he also does damage. You know, he chased down blocks, that big chase down block yesterday, and he does stuff. And he does not lead the league in steals like Ben Simmons, who's also up there defensively. I think they're great. But wow, he's a presence on the court. Like, again, it reminds me of Shaq, where everyone just knew where he was standing at all times.
See, this to me falls into the category of what I was saying before, this idea that he's great. And I just don't see the numbers there.
Well, all the defense,
not to nerd out, I'm just like, he doesn't get deflections. He doesn't get steals. He's not a good shot blocker comparatively. Like, if we consider him a center or like a big, he's not amongst the top 3/4 of big guys in the NBA. He's 25 in the game, or 27th in the league in blocks. There's no blocks, there's no steals, there's no deflections. He doesn't contest shots. I think he's
he does
150th.
So I mean, okay.
I'm just saying I understand what you mean. Like,
yes.
Oh, he's awesome. I'm like, but where's the evidence that he actually does shit?
So it's like that's why I call him a shadow, right? Because again, this cornerback analogy in football, Darrelle Revis was the best player on the field at any point, but he accrued no pass deflections, no interceptions, no nothing, because they just didn't go to him. So they went to the opposite end of the field. And, you know, you say rightfully that Giannis doesn't accrue steals, blocks, deflections. He mops up defensive rebounds, but he's not outstanding in these surface categories. But he dominates all the other overarching categories like defensive BPM, defensive rating, and all that stuff. And although the too noisy for me after the whole BPM greenwashing of statistics, but also this points to
I
something.
think there's $3 in the top 5 in like defensive win shares or something.
But good defensive players help other defensive players, right?
I agree.
It's almost like drafting in Nosim Bin in like the Tour de France, right? Like if the guy in front, your dominant defensive player makes all the defensive players behind them, it's easier on them because offenses are stymied, right?
My scouting report on Giannis is that he is a very good post defender who does not guard full-size centers. He's a very good weak side help defender and coming over and offering rim protection. And he's a good rebounder. To me, that's it. That's what he does. When I watch him, there is no activity that is comparable to, say, Bam Adebayo. Just completely different. The rim protection of Gobert and Embiid, completely different. The ability to bounce from position to position like Ben Simmons, completely different. Like, I just don't see that level of activity. I don't see him being disruptive. I do see what, you know, when people drive in and he and Lopez are standing there and the guy like stops and has to like kick the ball out and they end up with a garbage possession. Like, that's real. But I also view that as like Brook Lopez. Like, Lopez actually is what people think Giannis is. Brook Lopez is an awesome rim protector.
I mean,
Giannis has never been a good rim protector until Lopez showed up and until Coach Bud showed up. Go back to his advanced metrics from 3 years ago. He's not even good. Like a couple of years ago, you go by like BPM, like PIPM, he's like in the top 100, top 75, top 180, maybe.
He changed a lot. But this is where I feel like I want to talk about the voting process for something like Defensive Player of the Year, which is like these awards are never great. But instead of giving a writer 1 vote, I feel like you should give every writer 10 votes. And they could spend the 10 votes on, you know, each vote goes to a player. But what if someone was like, I'll give 6 to Giannis and 4 to Lopez. And then you tally them all up. And it gives us a better picture of what the writers are thinking.
Don't they do that?
I don't know. I thought because all these writers say they voted for a guy.
Maybe I'm not sure. I know that for MVP, at least in the past, there were times when it would say he received like X amount of like second place votes or something.
Oh yeah, you can vote for second place for sure. I was talking like more like a share. I kind of like a pie chart. I want the normal like politics election to be like this too. You get
I
like
see.
10
I
shares.
think they kind of try to do that by saying, here's
second
your
place,
first
right.
vote and it's weighted this way. Here's your second one, it's voted this way, and then you tabulate them up. I think.
But a
I'm
second
not
place
sure.
vote is not a vote for first place, right?
No, it's more saying like, if you were going to go, Giannis gets 6 and this guy gets 4, it's kind of being like Giannis gets first, this guy gets second, and then you're like weighting them. But again, I don't know the actual calculus, or even if they do it for Coach of the Year. The guy who got snubbed a bit was Nick Nurse, whose Raptors were really surprising after losing Kawhi Leonard. And he was 1 vote away from it being a 3-way tie.
Yeah, he got the outside. It's on the outside looking in, but it would have been wild if there was a 3-way tie, because you got Budenholzer and Donovan as the 2 tied to Coach of the Year. The Coach of the Year is really tough for me again because like it's all based off of like injury to me. But like, why wasn't it the Lakers? Whoever is the Lakers coach, like whoever is standing there on the sideline, shouldn't it be the Lakers guy? And I think the argument against that would be they have 2 of the best players on earth. But Giannis is MVP.
Right. I think the coach of the year generally just falls into a category of who seemed to do the most with the littlest, the least. And to your point, like whose team was the best. So Vogel not getting votes and Coach Bud getting votes is more of a testament to the fact that the Lakers had 2 superstars versus Giannis and like a bunch of good players.
Yo, Middleton's been going off though.
I agree. He's been really, really good. He's
an
played
all-star,
this
right?
year like a star in terms of he just doesn't miss shots.
Yeah, he's really good, man.
I
Boring,
find him
boring.
very boring, but he
Yeah.
doesn't miss shots.
Yeah.
There was a time when I'd be like, all right, when is he going to start missing here? Come on. Now I'm like, no, they're just going in, dude.
Yeah, he's a good shooter, and
And he's got a nice lazy man's game, which I do respect.
very much so.
A half-assed pump fake, someone goes one direction. Another half-assed pump fake, someone goes the other direction. He just kind of like puts the ball in the hoop. Like,
Yeah, he's
well
got-
done. That was an economy of motion.
Yeah, he's
boomer.
got that McMillan sleepy vibe to him. I do like that. Yeah, it's a good point. And yeah, whereas Giannis is just like spastic and kind of annoying and all elbows and like optically not fun to watch. And I don't know, Middleton's destined to be a trailblazer, it sounds like.
I also don't think any coach who has Chris Paul on the team is allowed to win it.
Because he is the coach.
It's Chris Paul, man. Your
Yeah.
team's always going to be better than people think. Just put him out there. Like, he got Byron Scott, notoriously bad coach.
Yeah.
Like, laughable coach later down the line with the Lakers.
Yeah.
Coach of the year,
Yeah.
Chris Paul. Billy Donovan. People were roasting Billy Donovan a couple years ago. Chris
Yeah, I
Paul
know,
shows up.
right?
Wow, look at these guys go.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Who helmed this juggernaut that's winning games they're not supposed to? Like, dude, they have Chris Paul. He's the greatest point guard ever lived. He's a basketball genius. I think Nick Nurse would be my guy.
Yeah, I believe that too because they lost they lost the guy, right? I kind of wanted to. You reminded me of my favorite current Boomers paradox, the Boomers dilemma, when Mark Jackson gets passed up for head coaching jobs, and Boomers are just like, he is the guy who created the Warriors, which is not true. They're like, how are you going to disrespect one of the greatest coaches without a job on earth? And I'm like, that's not true. He's not one of them. And then he calls these games, and Boomer's like, oh, he's terrible. He doesn't know anything like I know. And I'm like, well, right, because you hear him talk about hoops, and you're just like, maybe he is not fit to be a great coach. Like, I don't think coaching is rocket science. Some coaches skate by having Chris Paul on their team, but like Mark Jackson will get another shot eventually, but he doesn't need one tomorrow.
Remember some of the very first conversations, and these were arguments that we got into when we were having beers at Max Fish, was over coaching mattering or not. And I remember your stance was that coaching doesn't matter. And
I
was
stand
like,
by
"What are
that."
and I was like, what are you talking about? Mike D'Antoni versus, I don't know,
he
whoever
matters.
was a coach at the time.
Pop and
I've
him
come
matter.
around to your way of thinking a little bit, only in that. Only in that.
Ooh, I was gonna
not,
say.
not exactly. Only in
happening?
that. I do think the fat part of the curve in the NBA, the coaching is pretty similar.
Yeah.
Because really bad coaches who are well behind that curve don't last that long anymore because teams are getting smarter. Front offices are evolving. They're getting more guys who pay attention to the right things, and they're hiring coaches who pay attention to the right things and play the right way. So I think in general, like the 5th best coach and the 25th best coach are
Right.
probably fairly similar at this point. They might have different philosophies, but they're probably going to win about the same amount of games. And there's probably 5 dudes who are really, really sharp. And there might be 5 guys who are kind of shitty. So to me, I put Nick Nurse along with Pop right at the top of those 5 guys. I think Nick Nurse is one of those coaches that does make a difference. And I think Coach Bud does too. Not sure about Billy Donovan, but I do think Bud and Nick Nurse are right up there with Pop as like dudes I think make a difference as coaches, but most coaches don't.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that because on its surface, coaching doesn't matter is untrue. But yeah, totally. To my point was like D'Antoni, I think is one of the greatest basketball thinkers I've ever seen in action, and Popovich is undeniable. I think he is a genius, and I'm excited that you put Nurse and Bud in there because it's been a lot of years since Pop was like in his prime, you know, doing his thing, and these guys are amazing, and they are so boring. Nick Nurse tries. He's got his own streetwear line. Respect to Nick Nurse. But I think, doesn't he have like that end like stitched baseball hat he
yeah.
loves to wear? Black on
I
black.
just see him and I see a foot fetishist. There's
That's
just something about his face. People say, what's his name? Colin Jost. Yeah, how do you say his name? Is it Jost?
I think Yost.
Yost. That he has a punchable face. Nick Nurse has a foot fetishist's face. Sorry, no shaming.
My favorite was no sin bin again. The Jets coach his wife was outed as a foot fetish model, and they tried to get him for it, and they were just like, "Yo, we found out that your wife is an actress in a specific genre," and he goes like, "Oh yeah, oh I know this," and we're like, "Oh, fair enough, King, do your thing." Yeah,
It was
Nick,
a fairly well-known club promoter in New York City. I'm not going to give any specifics in case you're no shaming.
yeah.
I don't know if you would care, but I remember he was trying to start a lingerie line for feet.
That's incredible. That's awesome, man. Let's go.
So they were all, like, I don't know if they're like straps, but, meshes and ribbons that would like allow some of your toes to provocatively protrude and then like wrap it around in a sultry way. It was foot lingerie.
Can we workshop this? Because can we
Can we get it to Nick Nurse?
could we put like beers in lingerie or like TVs when the season comes back for the NBA? Like, I don't really understand kink. That's why I respect it. But like, what are could we put lingerie on an iPhone? Or on a sports car, or on like a Birkin bag. Yo, this is incredible. Can we
Sports cars already have bras. So
This
yes.
is true. This is true. Yes, and some trucks have testicles, and they're always
truck nuts.
they're always trailed by Draymond Green's elbow. But yeah, I love this, man. Can we put like glasses of wine in lingerie?
I think you can put anything in lingerie.
This is true, man. This is incredible.
This is the lingerie revolution. It also feels like something that we'll Google and people have been doing for 30 years.
That's right.
Oh, wine glass lingerie. Oh, yeah, this is from 1972. It's a $60 billion a year industry.
That happens to me at least once a year where I look at someone's like painting or something and I'm like, yo, is someone ripping me off? And it's like a Matisse. I'm like, oh, I'm dumber than I even thought. It was but Yeah, I'm into this. Let's put a lingerie on iPads.
I agree. It'll make the world a much more beautiful and sexier place.
Or what about those dunks? Which those they came out with some lingerie dunks, right? Which ones were those? The LVs? You know, it was like gray with like a lace swoosh. Those
I
are
didn't see them, but again, I believe it all.
it's crazy enough to be true, Ben.
Just put everything in a French maid's ensemble.
Yeah, frame the Mona Lisa in lingerie. No.
Basketballs covered with lingerie.
Yeah, basketball holders, right? I'm into this. So Nick Nurse, we could call it the Nick Nurse line, and he's multifaceted. He's not only a top tier coach, he's an elite lingerie designer.
I'm in. Moving along. We had Jonathan Isaac, who's a talented young player on the Orlando Magic. Big, skinny, rangy guy. Fantastic defender in, I think his third year, although he's been injury plagued.
I think he's like number 2 on my KBB. Number 3.
Yeah, I believe he went 4th overall.
Yeah.
I think in the draft that included Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, and Jason Tatum, the exciting young journeyman from the Celtics.
Yep. Whose
Isaac
trade
has
value
been-
will never be higher.
Isaac has been plagued by injuries. So let's just do the injury part first. He blew out his ACL in a game yesterday, which sucks because he's a exciting young guy who's had injury problems, and
He
you
was
hate to see it in the bubble.
Yeah, you despise to spy it, but like he was turning into the player we thought he would be out of. I believe he went to school in California. UFC, right? Not UFC, FSU. I don't know. But he was, promised to be this tenacious, long, rim protecting stretch that was tantalizing, almost Van Horn-esque, you would say.
A lot of people compared him to a young KVH.
The streets have been saying he was KVH2, more KVHs. But I love his prototype so much. He had range. He had he was a good shooter and a devastating rim protector. I love closeout speed. And he had injuries, like you say, and he was turning into a player. And Orlando, even though I still claim, was entering purgatory. They had some pieces with him and Aaron Gordon, maybe.
I mean, to me, he's another guy that I would put ahead of Giannis as a defender. I just think he's better.
He's very good.
I think he does more stuff. I think he's more versatile at defending perimeter guys while still offering you weak side shot blocking. Giannis is certainly a better post defender, but
He just
I do
didn't
think,
play enough games. Like Isaac was hurt a lot of this year.
I would not have put Isaac up for Defensive Player of the Year or anything. I'm just saying in the Dietrich defensive. What's another word with a D that goes
Hypothetical.
diary. Dietrich defensive diary.
Defensive
the triple
diaries.
D.
Yeah.
I would say Giannis is below Isaac as well. Anyway, that's just for the diary.
I mean, these are all. I think, like, unfortunately, Isaac is probably off the table for the foreseeable future. But if you told me Isaac was going to be the best defender in the league, I'd be like, yeah, that's what we were hoping for him. He has those tools. Like, there's certain players that I think qualify: Ben Simmons, Jonathan Isaac, Jaren Jackson Jr. If you told me he was going to be the best defender in the league, I'm like, that sounds right. But what else happened with Jonathan Isaac this week?
So, before one of Orlando's games, every player on both teams was wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, and they all took a knee during the national anthem. All except for the aforementioned Jonathan Isaac, who did not wear the shirt.
He was the first one not to. There have been a few now.
Right, so he didn't kneel and he didn't wear the shirt. And he was the first not to. And I don't even want to get into Myers Leonard's bullshit.
Don't do it, Ben. Don't do it.
No, I don't even care about Myers Leonard. Isaac is far more interesting. So people were more bewildered than anything else. It was not like Colin Kaepernick, where people were outraged and then they found out why he did it and remained outraged. People were kind of quizzical. Like, what's the explanation here? Mm-hmm. So after the game, he was questioned by Taylor Rooks. And he gave a couple answers that were hard to decipher, at least upon the first listen. And he said that it had to do with religion and the gospel. And she asked a follow-up question saying, well, what do these things have to do with each other? You know, taking a knee and Black Lives Matter and religion. And he gave another kind of, I don't want to say incoherent, that's not the right word, but another sort of circular answer that didn't really get to the gist of what she said or why he actually did this. What was your takeaway from that interview?
This is going to be a classic frustrating take by me, but
God.
I understand that half of America have these points of view, so it would make sense that someone in this bub would. I wasn't guessing it would be Jonathan Isaac at all, but I was like, yes, we hear this a lot coming from a lot of people. And, you know, he actually said he believes in Black Lives Matter, but he just doesn't believe with the trappings of it. You know, I'm definitely giving him a lot of credit here and paraphrasing a bit. But, you know, he came out and say, like, he believes Black Lives Matter, that movement. But he didn't believe in taking the actions that his peers wanted to take, which sounds like a classic young person idea, being like, well, a lot of you zig, I'll zag, you know. And to me, I didn't really care that much. My eyebrows were raised, but then I caught myself. And I'm like, it would make sense that within this selected community that we're watching in this burger bub, that someone would have this point of view. And I kind of moved on from it.
For me, I obviously think he can do whatever he wants.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, he can kneel, he can wear the shirt, whatever. It's his choice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason. I went back and listened to what he said again, and I think I caught it the second go round in a way that I didn't on the first one. The first one, I think the religious stuff threw me. I was trying to parse it out. I'm not a hyper-religious person, you know, I'm not at all, but I grew up going to Sunday school. I've read parts of the Bible, you know, like I studied it in college in a course. Again, no expert, but I was trying to hear what he was saying because obviously there is no disconnect between civil rights and religion. I mean, Martin Luther King, Bishop Tutu, you know, you can go on.
Yeah. I think religion's attached to almost everything.
For sure. So there is no, you know, obvious schism between activism and religion. Jesus, you know, like, so I went back and listened. And upon second thought, it was really easy to see what he was saying to me. I could be wrong. This is just my interpretation of what was a fairly garbly statement. Was that I don't think he did say that he supports the Black Lives Matter movement. I think he said Black Lives Matter, but he didn't say I support Black Lives Matter as a movement. And then he also said twice, people point the finger too much. And then he also said all lives. I think we got ourselves a MAGA chud.
Which is fine, right?
No, look, he's entitled to believe whatever he wants.
Yeah.
My only take is that if you listen to those words again with this in mind, and you realize that he liked to tweet calling AOC a Nazi, he follows Celtics fan Ben Shapiro, follows Weird Mike Cernovich, follows Candace Evans, it starts becoming kind of clear where he's coming from. And that's why people on that side of the political spectrum responded so giddily, because they heard all lives. They heard points the finger. He said that phrase twice in both answers.
Second best-selling jersey after he made that statement.
That's what I'm saying. They knew it. They weren't like, oh, he's religious. They knew what he was saying. They picked it up in a way that we don't, because he's versed in the arguments that they're making, which is that Black Lives Matter is racist. And that's what he was saying.
Yeah. I mean,
again, my interpretation.
And I think
because he was not courageous and he did not come out and say exactly what he meant. He concealed what he was saying beneath a veneer of religious sort of righteousness and like personal, you know, my personal opinion. He didn't say what he was actually saying, but those people did. They got it.
I think this is where I opt out, because I think you're mostly right. You know, you're probably like 85% there on what Jonathan Isaac was trying to convey. But I opt out as soon as, and I do want to talk about it. I'm not opting out, not wanting to talk about it. But what I mean is these parsings of words, the way we argue about words is very, very fluid to me and confusing. So when he says like Black Lives Matter, and you're like, but he didn't actually say that. He said something else. And I'm like, I'm going to take a step away from this conversation now because I actually know what he means, but I don't really care, right? So I believe that he probably supports Trump and probably is we know he's religious. There's footage of him like sermonizing, and he should be on the Knicks probably, but especially with his knee injury, not to poke fun at a knee injury, but you know, he's prime Knicks fodder at this point. But you know, I accept I don't agree with, but I accept his point of view. But I have to opt out when semantics and arguing over language gets so intense where...
I don't think it is intense because I haven't even heard people get upset about it. And I haven't even heard people particularly say what I just said.
I mean, I'm happy to do both, to be honest. But
I don't care. It didn't make me happy when he hurt his knee. I felt bad for the guy.
Oh no,
I don't care what his opinion is. I'm just saying I think he skated under the radar with a really bad take because no one quite caught it and he concealed it within an answer. And we're talking about a guy who's given sermons. This is a guy who thought about what he was going to do. Someone who obviously knew that he would get attention, knew he would get asked about it, has publicly spoken about religion and could not give an answer that anybody understood. I'm like, that was intentional.
He also might have some vanity to him. Like you say, I'm like, oh, he's going to get asked about this. And he ate it up. And he's a person who enjoys I guess he invited all of his teammates to a sermon and no one showed up, but he still gave it because he enjoys being on this platform. And I think that's fair. And a lot of people do enjoy that moment for themselves. And it's so funny when he got hurt, the obvious reaction, the schadenfreude. How many people do you think believe that they're empathetic but also believe in karma? And how many times does karma end up in their favor? I was just like, that word was trending because of Jonathan Isaac's injury for a second on my feed. And you know I hate that word. I just think it's useless because it depends on when you pick it up. Because when he went down, I was a little heartbroken, man. Like, no one deserves
No, of course not. Of course not. And again, you know, if we're talking about a politician who has impact over people's lives, having terrible viewpoints, I think that's a problem. If it's a 21-year-old athlete, like, I just don't care that much. And my only takeaway was, I think for someone who clearly wants to be a public figure and wants to say things, I just thought his point was missed by most people, but the audience who he wanted to get it did.
Well, you mean people didn't understand that he was probably a MAGA fan?
He didn't want to say what he believes specifically.
I thought that was understood, right?
What?
That he was pro MAGA and anti-BLM. That's what we gathered from it, right?
I'm saying that was not what people really took away from it.
No?
To me. I don't know. Again, I just thought it was interesting that that people who are religious were complimenting him and saying how courageous he was, when my point was that he kind of took pains to obscure what his actual point was.
Right. Like, he should have just come out and say
That's all I'm saying. Yeah, he didn't say, look, I don't support Black Lives Matter. I think it's racist against white people.
Yeah.
It would have been like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
Instead of everyone saying,
right.
All right, dude.
Yeah.
But you saw the response from right-wing people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but some people were very excited about that. And they got a quick crash course in
Karma.
No, in what kind of prospect Jonathan Isaac was. Like, who's this?
I just learned about this MAGA Chud basketball player. He seems so awesome. And then he got hurt. Welcome to our world. We've been dealing with Jonathan Isaac for years.
Yeah. I mean, I did not know much about Jonathan Isaac's life before that, and I realized I don't know much about any of these guys except the superstars, right? Like we know so much about Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Carmelo Anthony, but outside of that, I'm like, what is Myers Leonard like? I have no idea.
I mean, we've pretty much embraced the ethos on this show that we never know what players are like or what they want.
Even Steph Curry, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't really know what Steph Curry's like.
No, yeah,
I don't know what any of these guys are like. Paul George, well, he's definitely going to LA. Actually, I'm going to sign for 5 years to stay in OKC, and then I'm going to demand a trade. And I don't know what you want, dude.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what Kawhi was thinking.
But that is all, by the way, just speculation on my re-listening of Jonathan Isaac's statement.
I find that to be fair.
I could be wrong. That's just my interpretation. And look, if he's not going to be clear, he leaves us to try to interpret it however we can.
Yeah, which is definitely his intent, right? He's dog whistling a little bit. Hey,
Yeah, I thought that's what he did.
the leader of the free world does that every single day. So it's confusing. It's tough. And, I don't want to harsh arguing about language because kind of that's all we got. If people are going to dog whistle, we have to deconstruct language, right?
Yeah, I thought it was more interesting and just part of sort of the discussions we have today about meaning and parsing those things. If people aren't clear, we're left doing it all the time.
Yeah. Speaking of parsing meaning,
Chandler parsed.
what's up with Shake and the Sixers, man?
So the Sixers' first game was 2 days ago, and they lost a heartbreaker to the unstoppable T.J. Warren and the Indiana Pacers. Their second game against the Spurs kicks off in a couple hours, so you might be listening to this after that game, most likely so.
Not if you subscribe to us on Patreon, which we're very, very grateful for you doing.
I mean, even if you do, you might be getting it after the game because it's, in like an hour.
Oh, right.
But, Philly showed a lot of the same clunkiness that they've had over the course of the season. And at first blush, I would say that's to be expected. That lineup with Shake Milton replacing Al Horford in the starting lineup had not played a single minute together all season. So even if they got some reps in practice, it's not the same. They have not played on the court together against an NBA opponent. Mm-hmm. So there was some discord between Shake and Embiid. They kind of yelled at each other on the sidelines. It looked like Embiid said, "I'll slap the shit out of you."
I love that guy.
Love it. I didn't view that as negative at all. Like, this is guys trying to figure it out, arguing with each other. Like, it's cool.
Dude, do people know what me and you do before we press record? It's Embiid-ish.
You threatened to smack the shit out of me before 90% of our shows.
It's motivation, man. It's gruel.
And then after I take down your takes, I get threatened again after the show.
Yeah, man. I just want it more.
But the Sixers' offense scored fine, and that was because Embiid had a monster game.
Oh my god, that game, man.
He just brutalized the Pacers' undersized front court. Yeah. But they had nothing for Kawhi-ish looking and acting T.J. Warren, who emotionlessly dropped 53 points on the Sixers' collective head.
Yeah.
I don't know why people get so upset over a close loss when an opponent went absolutely bonkers. Like, hats off, dude. You went 20 of 27 from the floor. And people are like, but the Sixers defense.
Yeah.
Who cares, man? It's a top 5 defense all year. All year they have had an excellent defense. That's not a problem. They can put defensive units that are even better than the typical ones. Cool. Thibault's going out there. Like, it's not a problem. Sixers can defend. Their offense did show a lot of the same issues that we've seen pre-Shake. And it kind of made me a little bummed, only because you realize that, like, with all the talk of Horford moving out of the starting lineup, they still use that same starting lineup during the game at times.
I know.
They're always shifting players around. It's really not like a new look Sixers. It's kind of the same look Sixers, and the same problems still were there.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself going in two directions. a coin flip game, you're absolutely right. When TJ Warren goes nuclear, like what can you do, right? And when you grade on a curve, which is like defensive statistics, you throw out the best and worst samples, and you take the middle because there's always going to be weird situations. That said, after 2 games, they look kind of sloppy, man. Like, there's work to do a little bit. Entry passes aren't crisp. Shots aren't crisp.
Are you talking about the Spurs game that we haven't seen yet?
Oh, I mean, the first game. I'm sorry. Hey, but Houston did play 2 games. They went to overtime versus Dallas, man.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm right on the Sixers one, wrong on the Houston one.
So we're shooting 50%, which is Hall of Fame numbers, to be honest.
It's no TJ Warren.
But I think the Sixers were not crisp, man, and that might be rust. That just might be a bad matchup. It might be maybe they got a little tummy ache from all those burgers they ate. But
I got some thoughts on this.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. They did not execute, and they could have easily won that game. But hey, they're going to win the next one. It's still a great team. It just didn't work out for them that one game.
That's all true. But I do think a team that goes small against the Sixers illuminates more than usual the flaws with that team. You know, when you have everyone trying to post up, it doesn't work as an offense. And when the Pacers were putting, Jakar Sampson on Embiid, they were just going small everywhere. The Sixers' deficiencies in terms of speed and passing and ball handling become more obvious. And I think that's something that could potentially haunt them in a playoff series, just the lack of quickness and ball handling on the team overall. Someone goes small and puts a good defender on Embiid, the Sixers are forced into trying to post up other people all the time and then getting beaten to loose balls, getting beaten in transition. And we saw that happen with the Pacers a bit. But the Sixers' main issue, I've been thinking about this quite a bit because I have nothing else to think about other than the Sixers' problems. And it's an issue of real estate. Everyone on Philly wants to go to the elbow. They all want to go to the short corner. They all want to go in the post. They all want to get in the lane. All of them. All of their 5 marquee players, so to speak. And I'm talking about Richardson and Horford in this group. They all want to go to the same place. That's where they're comfortable. So it's a bit like, this is a clumsy analog here, but it's a bit like having a farm. And you've got some land that's sunny. You've got some land that's in the shade. You have some land that's in a marshy lowland. Lowland? A marshy lowland.
Gina Rowland.
Lindsay Lowland. Anyway, it's a glade. Maybe it's a little brackish. Maybe it's a fen. A peat bog. Whatever the case. These are the areas you have. And you want to plant some stuff. And every plant you have prefers the marshy lowland. So you start planting your stuff. You're like, I'm running out of room here. So you start planting them other places, in the sun, in the shade, and they don't grow right. Because that's not where they're supposed to thrive. You're not getting Mother Nature's bounty. It's not a bumper crop. So that's what's happening with the Sixers. Everyone wants to go to these same spots. You run out of room, and then you end up having someone who thrives in that spot standing 25 feet away from the basket. That's my clumsy comparison.
You could have just said ravioli slice, man.
You're 100% right. That's your best take of the day. I should have just said potato burritos.
It's a ziti samosa.
But bro, there's a couple of plays and you're just like, this is nutty, man. All right, Tobias Harris, he decides to post up from the elbow and back someone down. Okay, Ben Simmons, you go stand in the corner where you have made 2 career threes, and all right, Horford, you're going to go over. They all just go to the same spots. It's like whoever can beat the other guys down court gets to claim the paint.
Yeah.
It's kind of gold rush with your little sifting pan sprinting down court so you can set up your steak at the short corner.
At their best, the Sixers look perfect, to be honest. At their worst, they look like a Benny Hill skit, right? Where they're just like bumping into each other, falling off of ladders. And optically, it looks really bad because they're optically potentially a really clumsy team. Like when when Josh Richardson does something bad, it looks worse because he's a wet noodle. When Al Horford does something bad, it looks worse because he's like a stiff old man, you know? And it's like, why did we sign that guy? Tobias Harris just reminds people of the lighter version of him, Jason Tatum. Like, it just optically is clear. And they just didn't, yeah, you're right. They occupy the same space. Elton Brand, man, he just signed players who reminded him of him.
I don't even think he made decisions, but I also agree with that, like that take. Like, I don't think Elton Brand has anything to say with who gets signed. But I also like the idea that he signs people that look like him. Those can both exist satisfactorily in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, if you just put Embiid and Simmons out there with 3 Danny Greens, I think you'd win an NBA championship.
But those Danny Greens are hard to come by, man.
For sure. But
yeah.
I'm talking prototype, not as good of a 3-and-D guy as Danny Green, who's, peak. Mm-hmm. But just 3 guys like that, especially when you watch the Rockets. Sixers don't move like an NBA team. The ball sticks every single time it gets passed. It's sloppy. They have 2 guys who demand double teams constantly, yet are never zipping the ball around the perimeter to find a shooter.
Yeah.
Because, Embiid or Simmons will draw a post up, kick it to someone. The defense responds, and then Tobias Harris takes a dribble. Or Josh Richardson takes a dribble. It was a play last game. Really got my goat.
Did it. For the first time.
First time goat gotten. Simmons sort of maneuvered his way into the lane. The defense collapsed a bit, and he threw kind of like one hand, almost baseball pass, just not that far, to Josh Richardson, who was behind the 3-point line. Richardson standing 4 feet behind the line with his arms to his sides. Like, to me, you can't ever be on the court. That's just unacceptable. Like, I'm sorry, you can't be on the court. Like, you're not allowed to play basketball on my team. If you are standing behind the 3-point line, 4 feet behind it, with your arms to your sides while your teammate is getting doubled in the post, like, get off the court. You can't play.
Your laundry list of enemies, I think, the short list would be Giannis, Tatum, who is Tobias Harris light, and Richardson.
Tatum's not an enemy, though.
Okay. You hate Richardson. Can you talk on that a bit?
I think Richardson is a totally fine basketball player. He is a good defender. He tries hard. He tries to make the right plays. He seems like a good teammate. He's not selfish. I want to throw some praise on him.
He was good in Miami, less good in Philly.
He was better in Miami because he shot better. The same kind of issues with him as a ball handler were present. I've gone back and did what maybe Philadelphia didn't, which was go back and watch his assists in Miami. And you quickly realize he doesn't see the floor at all. And he can only pass once he's committed to a shot, and he lifts his head up and then makes a quick decision. And some of those lead to easy buckets or a lob or an open jumper. But it's clear after 5 minutes of watching his passes that he doesn't see guys cutting. He doesn't see the floor. He doesn't see anything. And he can't make quick decisions. Obvious that he should never be a primary ball handler in a half-court offense. It's immediately obvious. So I'm not mad at him. I don't like the situation that Philly has put him in, which leads me to criticize him as a way to criticize their decision. And I feel bad about that because I think he does play hard. He is a quality defender. His skill set is just the last possible skill set you want from a team that already has Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And then you throw in Tobias Harris, who just will not shoot threes and doesn't pass. He had 0 assists in 29 shot attempts last game.
Who's Zion-esque?
I mean, Tobias is a chucker. He's okay. He's not bad. I don't think he's
not
the
bad.
problem.
He's not good. He's kind of right at mid-zero.
Kind of a yin-yang. But again, I don't think Tobias is a problem, but he's not the problem. He's a solvable problem. But Josh Richardson can't start on that team. He didn't shoot a three last game. You can't have that. Philly took 19 total three-pointers. You can't do it. I don't care at all if they lose. I don't care at all how many turnovers they have. It doesn't bother me. Generating 19 three-pointers, that's just amateur hour shit. And
Not
that's
enough.
not Brett Brown.
Yeah.
Brett Brown's fine. It's Josh Richardson. It's Tobias Harris. It's guys turning down three-pointers. And those guys don't get to the foul line. So
That's
you're
the problem.
just... Like the whole thing, man. The whole thing that bums me about Philly is that when you have the Lakers, you have LeBron and Anthony Davis. We just watched the Rockets. Where'd the ball go? Every single play. It went to Westbrook or went to Harden. When the game was on the line, it went to Giannis and Middleton. Philly does not have a differentiation between its actual stars, who are Simmons and Embiid, and guys like Tobias, who is not as good, or someone like Richardson, who is not good at all offensively. And like that's an issue when you give Tobias Harris $35 million and say, you're our dude. And then Brett Brown's like, well, why don't you just take like mostly threes and play like Ersan Ilyasova? And he's like, I'm Tobias Harris. I'm a $35 million player. Mm-hmm. I get top 10 salary in the NBA. When I feel like posting up on the wing or on the elbow, I'm going to do it. When I get a rebound, I'm going to dribble up the court because I'm Tobias Harris. I'm the highest paid guy on this team, and I lead it in field goal attempts per game. And you're like, yeah, but you're not that dude. Mm-hmm. That guy is Embiid. That guy is Simmons. Mm-hmm. You're the third tier. Last season, you were the fifth option.
Yeah.
Now you're taking the most shots on the team.
I know. He seems like such a interesting guy because you can gas a player up. I mean, look at Boston. They constantly gas players up, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And Boston, there's a crowded field of guys who are like, I'm the man on this team. There's three of them, maybe even 3.5 on the team right now. And with a team like Philly, you're right. I mean, this is the tiny green hand getting into the brains of Philly media and like turning people away from each other, against each other, where you can have them on the radio saying, yeah, I want to finish my career with one of the best players to ever play in the NBA. And everyone's like, what? This is news. I'm like, come on, man. Like Simmons and Embiid, like it's in their head, you know?
Look, I think Tobias seems like an awesome guy. I really respect him. He's a good basketball player. It's good. But there needs to be some delineation, and the Sixers have empowered him in a justifiable way from his perspective to have that completely blurred. That there are 3 stars in this team. He's the highest paid. They said, we don't want Jimmy Butler. We want you, Tobias Harris. He was picked over Jimmy Butler, who's a sort of third-tier retired MVP candidate. Philly said, we want you over Jimmy Butler. You're our third guy. So Tobias Harris gets a rebound. He's not handing it to Ben Simmons the way that Austin Rivers hands it to Russell Westbrook. He's bringing it up the court. When he wants to post up on the elbow, Simmons, get in the corner. Horford, get down there. It's Tobias time. You can't tell him not to. It's a problem. You know, to put it in some like relationship style way, it's like Tobias was a nice person that you date. But Philly was like, move in. Pick out the drapes. Tear up the floors. Get some carpets in here. Do what you want. Here's the checkbook. And you're like, this might not be the right person.
Right.
Again, I like him though.
It
seems like a great dude.
Yeah. I mean, Tobias is in like the upper tiers of players who are on teams. Like, what is Harrison Barnes supposed to do? Right? Like, what an odd career path he's taken. Crucial part on a championship team with weaknesses in his game, but will demand max money somewhere. It's just a very confusing role for him to be in because he's not an alpha player. But he looks like one. This is dribble bias, right? And Tobias Harris might have some of that dribble bias in him. He makes the most money. We've seen him perform at an alpha level. But in his DNA as a basketball player, he is not the alpha Embiid and Simmons are.
Yeah, and that to me is what sort of plagued Philly, is that they have not had the vision to make this a harsh environment. where it's like people have jobs and they do their jobs. And here's a theory I've been playing around with a little
I
bit.
love this. Let's go. Go off, King.
The idea is that players, are gateway drugs to certain results. And the longer they hold the ball, the more likely that that kind of result will occur. So just to explain a little further this ridiculous idea. Actually, I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it makes sense. Embiid is a gateway drug to a good possession. He takes too many mid-range jumpers. He turns the ball over. But overall, he's an efficient volume scorer. He draws tons of fouls. He gets other teams in the bonus. He gets their big guys off the court. Embiid is a gateway drug.
He's a Washington Square joint.
No, he's good. He's the good stuff.
Oh, he's heroin?
No, he's like the guy comes to your house and he's got a little briefcase and he opens it up and you're like, ooh, what's this one? And it has a cool name and it costs an exorbitant amount. Like, he's a gateway drug to a good possession.
Oh, okay.
Are we saying drugs are good or bad here? I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, Washington Square Park joint is the world is yours, right?
I don't think so.
I mean, I've seen my friends enjoy those things and it led to better things, but it is literally a gateway.
Okay, yes.
A cigarette,
yes,
you know?
true.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. See, I didn't even think through my whole gateway part. I just thought of the drug itself. But
I
right,
like
the
it.
gateway part. Look, I'm appreciative that you are helping me sort through this idea.
We're workshopping, baby.
No, this is good. This is really good. So Simmons, also gateway drug to great possessions because he's efficient himself, but he's a great passer. So he gets the ball to guys who take high-value shots, mostly three-pointers. So you have those two guys on Philly. Those are gateway drugs to great results. The longer the ball is in Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid's hands, or the more they touch it, the more good possessions you are likely to have. This is just how it works.
No, yeah.
So when you compare that to like Josh Richardson, he gets the ball, and the longer he holds it, the more likely it is that he's going to take a pull-up 14-footer. Sometimes it might go in. Sometimes it won't. Or that he's going to make a bad decision and, he's going to take the ball and he's going to feed Al Horford in the post against Porzingis. Like, he's a gateway drug to bad things happening. He'll miss a cutter, which means that now you're going to have to settle for a worse shot. He doesn't take an open three. Instead, he pauses, the defense resets, and then he dribbles, and now he's looking at a worse result. And I feel like Tobias, to an extent, does that, and Richardson does as well. And I think that's the problem with the Sixers. They don't get the ball to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid exclusively. They have too many chefs in the kitchen creating gateway drugs.
I was thinking about I hear what you're saying, and I almost apply it to my life in studio, but better like cooking a meal. Even as you're prepping, everything should look right and taste great. Obviously, you're not horking down raw onions, but they should be chopped well. Everything leads somewhere else. It's like a mini butterfly effect. And if you don't chop the garlic right and have your hands think like them and run them over some stainless steel, and if you don't do your mise en place correctly, like, it affects the outcome. And you're right, that's how a basketball possession operates. Every second counts, and the minute you initiate your offense, it's a cascading effect, right?
And if you took someone like Ricky Rubio, who's not a great shooter.
Oh, I just got lost thinking about him. What a handsome man.
Are you in his eyes?
I got lost in his eyes a little bit.
I'm kind of basking in them.
Is this a bub without Rubio?
He's there.
Oh, is he? I'm sorry. I have not watched.
He nutmegged someone with a pass yesterday. He's there.
Wow.
The guy got lost in his eyes. They threw the ball between his legs. But, with Rubio, when he's got the ball, he's not a great scorer, but he is a good passer. So there are positive outcomes that aren't just will he shoot it and what is the outcome of that percentage-wise where he is on the floor. All of a sudden, he'll find a guy open for a three. He'll find a guy for a lob. He'll find a cutter. So overall, the outcome when Ricky Rubio touches the rock is good. But with Tobias and Jay Rich, they don't pass the ball well. So the outcome is just limited to what they can score. And that's kind of where the Sixers go awry. Is like, they shouldn't ever touch the ball. Like, they should never touch it.
Yeah.
They should stand there run the floor, try to get layups, try to cut, eventually, once in a while, a mismatch, take open threes, attack closeouts, but they shouldn't make decisions. They shouldn't get the ball.
And
Let Simmons and Embiid do that stuff. They are your superstars.
And the irony is, right, like we were talking about Rubio and these certain players who can do this, Lonzo Ball. The Sixers have the best one. Ben Simmons sees the whole thing before it happens in that Jason Kidd way, but they're not using him the right way, and they haven't surrounded him with the right pieces. And that's the frustration, right? Like, I think the Sixers Twitter I love to follow pose the right questions. It's like, it's not that they're executing poorly. They're executing as they do with the players that they've accumulated. But if you really want to talk about process, their process creating this team was faulty. They did not chop the onions right. They forgot to buy garlic. Like, their path to getting here was ineffective. Last year, they were in this position with Jimmy freaking Butler, who is exactly the type of player to win them a championship this year. And
Shout out to those people who thought that Al Horford and Josh Richardson were an upgrade over Jimmy Butler. Go back and find your tweets.
Jimmy Butler's a top player.
Rethink your views on basketball. No offense. I just mean, we're all wrong about shit. Quo's wrong all the time. Sorry. I'm wrong all the time, too. We're all wrong all the time. But I just mean, it is very apparent that swapping out Jimmy Butler, who has created a dangerous foe in Miami,
Yeah.
for Al Horford and Josh Richardson, both of whom need to be removed from the starting lineup, was a calamitous decision.
Yeah, it was. I was a big fan of Josh Richardson in Miami, but his role was different, and he kind of could have come off the bench there. He's that type of player. He was never going to be in discussion of an all-star, but Jimmy Butler should probably be on the starting all-star team every year he plays in his prime. And two different animals entirely. And Horford, back in the ATL days, Horford was a very good and boring player.
I'm with you, man. They are good players. It's just the fit.
The fit's bad.
The irony of everyone saying, well, Tobias is a better fit than Jimmy Butler was how obviously untrue it was even at the time.
Yeah.
It was just people thinking that the ability to shoot makes someone a better fit.
Yeah.
Like, Tobias is a solid player who should be, I don't know, the second scorer on a lousy team. Like, that's his job. Second scorer, stretch four on a lousy team.
Yeah. How did they right? As soon as you give him that max contract, the psychology of his role changes. It's a Harrison Barnes curse. Like, it's unfortunate.
29 shots.
Yeah, you're right. Like, he should have, his value on the court only, like, respect the man for getting his, but his value should be as like a super sub and not someone who takes up that much cap space. Again, respect to him, but him receding into a smaller role is where he becomes the most dangerous version of himself, right?
Absolutely. And look, if you have Embiid, Simmons, and Tobias, those three guys can be a championship-winning team with other pieces that make sense. Tobias's biggest problem is that because he's not a volume three-point shooter, because he's not a good passer, because he's not versatile defensively, now you have to be very specific about how you fill out those other two positions, and then it gets a little trickier because you say, okay, well, one of those guys is just going to be 3-and-D. Okay, cool. But that means our other guy also has to be a high-volume three-point shooter who can run a half-court offense. Well, now you're kind of talking about a star.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that's the issue. If you just needed a ball handler who would shoot a couple threes out of one of those positions, that would be easy to find. But you don't. You actually need high-volume three-point shooting, perimeter defender who can run an adequate half-court offense. Like, who is that?
Jimmy Butler.
But Yeah, Chris Paul.
Right. Yeah. This goes along with our take about the internet or people saying things that we hold them accountable for. You can't be the totality of your projections onto some. The person cannot encapsulate all your desires onto them. And
No, go on. I'm sorry.
and all these, we want all these players to push their skills to a point where they would help this team, where they essentially become different players. You know, it's like
Right, and you paid Tobias Harris to be Tobias Harris. You didn't
Right,
pay
right.
him to be, Damari Carroll. But you actually might need Damari Carroll.
right, and this is honestly a problem with leadership and not having vision. It seems like they did the Knicks thing where they just acquired the thing in front of them. And if Tobias walked, I can't do this addition by subtraction because I love Tobias as a guy so much, but him not on the team gobbling up these shots, I don't know what the result would be, but I'm curious.
Well, I don't think they're better without him because that team just does not have talent beyond him.
Assuming you would fill his role with something else, you're not going to leave it.
Someone else? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. The main issue here is that when you have Simmons and Embiid, you have very specific needs that you need from the other three positions because those guys give you interior defense. They give you interior scoring. They give you shot creation. They give you defense. They give you all these great things, all the hard stuff. Those other three positions have kind of an easy job. We just need three guys who take a bunch of threes and want to take them and are eager to take them and let it fucking rip.
Eddie House Jr.
We need three of those guys.
Yeah.
They have to all be able to defend a bit. They don't have to be elite, just a bit. They got to be able to defend. Not elite. And one of them has to be able to handle the ball in the half court. So you say, which of those things does Tobias Harris satisfy? None. Well, fuck, man. Okay, Al Horford. He's got to satisfy one of these things. You're like, no, definitely not. None of them. All right. What about Josh Richardson? Perimeter defender.
Yeah.
They had three distinct needs, and they went out and did not find adequate people to satisfy 2 out of 3 needs.
And Covington was
one
acquired.
perimeter defender.
Yeah, Covington was acquired. And there was a rumor Covington was going to go back to the Philly. Like, there were moves to make. They weren't stuck here. And I don't think they're going to be stuck this offseason either. But you were all those requirements you were demanding, that's a player that they found in the G League, that they discovered and let go.
Yeah, and look, maybe Shake can be the guy who takes some threes and handles the ball. If he can do that, then he will satisfy some of those requirements. Matisse Thybulle can just be a reliable shooter and not do much else, then he can satisfy one of those requirements. Mm-hmm. If Korkmaz can defend well enough, he's a chucker. There are some options here that maybe he can work out, or GR3, maybe he can step up and take more threes and defend okay and run the floor. But overall, that's my issue with Tobias. It was that it put them even more in a box. He was redundant in ways they didn't need, and even though he's not bad, like, Tobias would make more sense if Ben Simmons was just a stretch 4. If he was Ersan and just stood behind the line, and then Tobias could operate in the middle of the floor and Embiid could be in the paint. That would make sense offensively. But he's not. And you don't have Ersan. You have Ben Simmons, who is a uniquely awesome player who just doesn't shoot. Anyway, we've addressed this. Philly plays again. Hopefully they'll get a win and everyone will stop freaking out. Self-included.
I like to freak out. It's it's never a dull moment on Philly Twitter.
I think Philly's got a great chance and to win this. And that last game, they were missing Mike Scott and Big Dog Jr. Mike Scott's actually valuable for them because he is a chucker.
He is, and he's a good defender.
I'm not as sold on his defense as you are, but he will let it fly, and Furkan will too. And they're the only 2 guys on the roster who will just chuck.
Yeah, let's see. I always think of Zaire Smith. I don't know. It's a shame. He was the right draft pick.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a bummer that he's not playing due to injury, and then Ryan Brokeboy,
What's
King
up with
Brokaw.
Broke Boy?
His wife, I believe, got COVID.
No.
I think that's the case, and so he decided not to come. So that's a bummer because he was a chucker. So
Is he going to quarantine and come back, or is he opting out?
I think he opted out. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's frustrating. Can these teams sign another player?
I don't know how it works. I believe there was a final bubble roster, but maybe there's like a hardship exception or something. I'm not sure.
That's fair.
But overall, yeah, that's my long-winded take on the Sixers game one.
Which was
All right,
a
man,
coin
it's been
flip
2
game.
hours. This is insane. There's 40 minutes of talking about the Sixers off of a T.J. Warren career game.
We needed, after 39 minutes, I was worried, but when we hit that 40th, I was like, finally, the perfect pod.
Dude, I was like, this will be a short
I
one.
love cookies.
Knock out an hour
I love
or
cookies.
2.
Oh, it was the perfect pod, fortunately.
Yeah, we got there.
I love cookies.
Cookies.
Cookies.